So what are the 28 points? You can look at them in different buckets, all right? The first bucket is sovereignty. As part of this deal, two things need to happen, all right? Russia must recognize formally Ukraine as a sovereign nation. They have to relinquish claims on Ukraine as being part of Russia, okay? That being said, they also get to keep all of the territory that they conquered. And those borders at that point need to be considered settled, all right? This is not an immaterial thing. This is like 20% of Ukraine's territory that they have to cede to Russia for this deal, all right? The second bucket has to do with peace terms and alliances, all right? And the main one is that Ukraine has to forever relinquish its efforts to join NATO, to the point that they put in their constitution that they're never going to join NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. This is huge for Russia. I think it's actually one of the causes of the war. There's also going to be a comprehensive non-aggression agreement between Russia, the EU, Ukraine, but then NATO also has to agree to not expand anymore. All right, so that's kind of the concession of Europe. Ukraine will not be able to join NATO, but they will have security guarantees from Europe, all right, and from the quote-unquote transatlantic community. Ukraine cannot have a standing army of more than 600,000 soldiers. And then, so while NATO doesn't get to be involved there, part of the deal is that NATO will be able to have fighter jets in Poland. So I think that that's kind of the concession that says, all right, NATO's not going to be able to join all the way that far east, but they're going to have strike force available in extreme Eastern Europe. Oh, and by the way, that strike force will be able to kind of monitor the peace deal as it's unfolding in Ukraine. Then there's the bucket of economic points, all right? And the key one is that Ukraine becomes eligible to join the EU and then would have immediate preferential access to the EU market. This is huge because while Ukraine won't be able to integrate with Europe militarily, they have this opportunity to integrate with Europe economically. And then the second point is that there's going to be this huge aid package to Ukraine. Part of it is paid for by $100 billion of frozen Russian assets that are basically going to flow into the Ukrainian economy under the supervision of the United States. I think there's some concerns about the money getting lost to corruption in Ukraine. And then another $100 billion would be pledged by the Europeans. And then on the Russian part, they get to reintegrate into the G8, which is the group of big economic countries. They get to reintegrate into the world economy in a way that they haven't been able to do for the last few years. Their economy has really been choked. And then finally, there's this other bucket of amnesty. There aren't going to be war crimes tribunals. You're not going to see a case where a Russian or a Ukrainian general is on vacation in France and they get arrested. All right, so those are the key points in this peace deal. And then the question is, well, is that a good deal or not, right? For the full ultra-realist take, click the link below and make sure to subscribe.